Christy, thank you. Following breaking news this morning, a D.C. Capitol police officer hospitalized during Wednesday's riots has died. You're looking at a line of police officers in front of the Capitol honoring Officer Brian Sicknick. He was a 15-year veteran of the force, and the 40-year-old died overnight from a stroke he suffered at the scene of the riots. Deborah Alfarone starts our team coverage for WJZ.
Facing talk of a forceful removal from office and the resignation of 2 cabinet members, President Trump released a video condemning the violence by his supporters.
The demonstrators who infiltrated the Capitol have defiled the seat of American democracy.
Citing the president's rhetoric on Wednesday,
"You'll never take back our country with weakness."
Education Secretary Betsy DeVos and Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao resigned.
Do you stand by this president dangerously staying in office?
Democrats are calling on the remaining cabinet members to remove the president using the 25th Amendment and threatening another impeachment.
He will be remembered for the rest of American history for death, division, and depression.
Federal law enforcement is working to identify those involved in Wednesday's assault. CBS News has learned that some of the rioters have stayed in the area and may be planning new attacks.
No one can tell me that if had been a group of Black Lives Matter protesting yesterday, they wouldn't have been treated very, very differently.
The Capitol Police Chief resigned amid intense criticism.
I've never seen a crowd that's less afraid of the police than this one.
In yesterday's video, President Trump discouraged any more violence.
We have just been through an intense election and emotions are high. But now tempers must be cooled.
Mr. Trump also acknowledged defeat and said he's focused on a smooth transition of power. Deborah Alfarone, CBS News, Washington.
All right, the FBI, they're looking for anyone involved in all the violence Wednesday. Let's go live to Annie Rose Ramos. She explains the U.S. Attorney for Maryland is among those vowing to prosecute those involved. Good morning, Annie Rose.
That's right, Max. Good morning. It is an all-hands-on-deck effort to find anyone involved in the break-ins, vandalism, and assaults at the U.S. Capitol on Wednesday. The FBI says so far they've received more than 4,000 tips.
A manhunt 36 hours after the violent riot at the Capitol. The mayhem that erupted Wednesday left 5 people dead. Police agencies say so far more than 80 people have been arrested. 9 of them are Marylanders. The FBI is now asking for your help to identify the people seen in photos vandalizing the Capitol and legislative chambers. Political science professor at UMBC, Dr. Jeffrey Davis, says it's important police track them down.
Anytime there's an assault like this on a democratic process, on a government institution, it's important to hold those responsible accountable. Otherwise, it's just going to keep happening.
D.C. police released a list of suspects and charges they could potentially face, including unlawful entry, curfew violation, assaulting a police officer, and defacing public property. But Dr. Davis says he believes once in custody, the suspects arrested could face much worse.
Seditious conspiracy, I think, is one of the crimes that could be charged here. And that doesn't just criminalize the attempt to overthrow the government. It also criminalizes delaying the execution of federal law by force.
Spotted inside BWI Thurgood Marshall Airport on Thursday, federal agents kept a close eye as people donning Trump face masks and MAGA hats checked onto flights. WJZ has learned that there was an increased police presence of federal agents, mostly to make sure that there weren't any problems. It's unclear if any arrests were actually made. A Frederick-based marketing company, Navistar Direct Marketing, fired one of its employees after he was captured in this photo inside the Capitol building with his company badge on.
And Max, the FBI is offering a $50,000 reward for the suspects responsible for those pipe bombs they found in D.C. on Wednesday. Reporting live, I'm Annie Rose Ramos for WJZ.
Annie Rose, thank you. Abijoy Burnett spent the day in Washington. She has what Maryland lawmakers who work on Capitol Hill are saying about the riots.
It was eye-opening. It was tragic.
One day after the world watched protesters rush the U.S. Capitol, broke into windows and breached what was thought to be one of the most secure buildings in the country, Maryland lawmakers who were inside are reacting about what happened. Senator Ben Cardin said it was tense.
Quite frankly, we could not believe it. We had a hard time understanding how people could get inside the Capitol.
Thousands of President Trump supporters traveled to Washington, D.C. for a rally where the president spoke.
It was full of love and laughter and smiles, and everyone was hugging.
USA! USA! Some protesters marched to the Capitol after the president encouraged them to do so. Maryland's sole Republican in Capitol Hill, Representative Andy Harris, said the president should not be blamed for the illegal actions of some.
Nearly having a protest that ends up on the Capitol grounds happens all the time. So the president calling to go to the Capitol grounds, we do that at the March for Life every single year.
Today, security is visibly ramped up around the Capitol and along the mall. Barriers were torn down Wednesday, but less than 24 hours later, they were up again around the nation's seat of power.
I don't think our nation is immune to anything. The only thing that makes our nation worth living in are the individuals and the people and the communities.
Democrats and Republicans are condemning the people who forced their way into the U.S. Capitol. We must also note that Washington, D.C. will be under a public emergency until the day after inauguration. Joy Burnett for WJZ.